back to Louisiana Living.
And welcome back. Cindy Robertson with the Ouachita Parish Public Library joins us during the month of March to highlight Women's History Month and women who have made an impact in our area. And so today we'll be discussing Narcissa Garrett. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Narcissa is an amazing lady. Not a whole lot of people know about her, so I'm glad we're doing this interview. Tell us about Narcissa Garrett.
Well, Narcissa was born in the early 1800s. She was a Grayson from the Caldwell area, and she married Isaiah Garrett. And Isaiah Garrett was a lawyer. He actually was one of 7 people who voted against secession during the Civil War. And they had a farm, but he practiced law. And as a young woman, she was on the wreck of the Buckeye. And she left a narrative in her older years for her grandchildren describing what happened on the Buckeye and the wreck and how she and her family survived. Her husband was with her and their son was with her. They had left their daughter, a younger daughter, at home. But what's significant about this, of course, very significant that 80 people lost their lives on the wreck of the Buckeye. Steamboat travel was very dangerous. And that was the major way of travel during that time. They had been on a trip to New Orleans and were coming back when the wreck occurred. But she injured her wrist and she didn't know how, but it never got well. And a little over a year later, her hand had to be amputated. And she tells about that in her stories to her grandchildren that she left, which is how we know about Narcissa, or a lot of what we know about her is from that narrative.
What is the highlight of the letter? How does when she describes the wreck?
Well, she wants her children to know about how times were and how she just kept trying to get air and kept trying to, she didn't know how to swim. And she describes, you know, remembering her brother telling her about swimming. And she said, I can't believe I remember that. And she talks about getting onto something that was floating and how much pain she was in for that year and how they didn't have chloroform until a year after her amputation. That's when they had chloroform. She says, you know, I wish it had been just a little bit later. And she says, but after this, she had great health. So she wasn't complaining. She just, you know, matter of fact.
And she's a strong woman. She went on to have 11 children, but not all of them survived.
That's correct. That's correct. Big families were the norm during that time, and she did have 11 children.
And there is a little red building in Monroe that serves as a reminder of Narcissa and her husband.
Yes, the Garrett Law Office.
There
her husband, Isaiah Garrett, the Garrett Law Office is 1840 was when that was built. Of course, it's been modified some, but a very pretty little building.
Very interesting. And we are out of time, but Narcissa did go on to continue to sew and do handiwork even without
just one hand.
Just one hand. Thank you so much, Cindy. And up next on Louisiana Living, we'll sit down with Dr. Jerry Yarborough in Ruston for this week's Physical Therapy Thursday. Stay with us.